There's no question the most important thing in the golf swing is the grip. You can have all the correct movements of your body, you can put the club on the right plane, you can hit through the ball, you can do all those things that are correct, but if you have a bad grip, you are never going to play consistent golf. Every great player I have ever seen, any player that has lasted a long time, has had a beautiful grip. Let me say this, the grip is quite complicated, and you can talk about the grip for 30 minutes alone. So we're going to try and give you the right grip and be as simple as possible. Now the correct grip is this. This is the grip that suits every single player that plays the game of golf. The left thumb must be slightly on the right-hand side of the shaft. Just slightly on right-hand side of the shaft. This hand, the right hand, must run parallel with the left hand. You never want the hands fighting each other. You don't want this hand over there and this hand over there, because that twists your body all out of position. The hands must work together as one unit. The left hand is gripped not in the fingers, not in the palm. It's a combination of both. There it is, slightly to the right-hand side. Another very good tip, an easy way to remember, there's a line formed here between your index finger and your thumb. There's the line very clearly indicated. And with your right hand, between your index finger and your thumb, there's the line. Those two lines must point at your right shoulder. So if you do what I said there and look down, that line there is pointing to my right shoulder. That line there is pointing to my right shoulder, and that's the correct grip. Now, if you want to hook the ball, then you've got to change your grip. Then you move your hands to the right-hand side of the shaft like that. Now you'll hook the ball. If you want to slice the ball, all you do is the opposite. You move your hands to the left-hand side of the shaft like that, and your grip will be so weak that you'll get an automatic slice. When we're standing in a tournament and we've got to go around those trees, what we basically do is change the grip. If it's a slice, we weaken the grip. If it's a hook, we strengthen the grip, and it's as simple as that. Remember, another very good tip, when you stand at attention, there you are. Your hands are not twisted this way or twisted that way. Stand at attention and be relaxed. Put your hands out in front of you, and that's basically the correct grip. If you want to bring that club back to the ball square, you've got to grip correctly. Take my advice, and I mean this sincerely. This will really help your golf. When we're on the tour, invariably I'll say to one of my friends, just check my grip here. And I'll practice shots, changing my grip, cultivating feel. It's amazing if you change your grip, and some of you try that. Just change your grip half an inch, and you'll feel how awkward it feels. Visit your pro. If I've got a sore tooth, I go to my dentist. Go to your pro, have that grip checked. Sometimes people play badly for years. They try new clubs, they try different swings. But the trouble is at the heart of the problem, and that is the grip. Have it checked. If you ever want to test if your fingers are strong and you have a good solid grip, try hitting 3 drives without changing your grip whatsoever. Hit the ball, have somebody tee it up for you, hit it again, tee it up again, hit it, and see if your hands remain the same on the club as they were originally. That's a good exercise to work on your grip. I find the stance a very amusing part of the swing because it does contradict itself, and I'll come back to that in a minute. Let's talk about the perfect stance. The ideal stance, let's say with a wood and a long iron. The ball, as you can see, is opposite my left heel. There's the club running parallel to my left heel. There it is. My stance is slightly open. You should never really stand shut. The perfect stance is slightly open, aiming just a little bit left of the flag. If you watch all the best players on the tour today, they're inclined to aim just a little bit left. There it is. Stance a little bit left, ball opposite my left heel. There it is. Knees flexed, nice and comfortable, with a little waggle to keep you relaxed. But let me hit a shot first of all, showing you that stance. There it is, which was a straight shot, another lucky one. Now let's come to the part where I say that the stance contradicts itself. You play with Lee Trevino. He aims 100 yards left of the target, stands very open like that because he doesn't like to hook the ball. He likes to hit everything with a fade. So he aims way left, takes it outside the line, and cuts it like that with a nice fade. Then you take Arnold Palmer. He doesn't like to fade the ball. He and I both agree that we'd rather draw it. Most good players that we've seen do draw the ball. Now we aim a little right of the target, and we make sure that we draw that ball when we hit it. If you draw the ball, it definitely goes at least 15 yards further than if you cut it. Then you take a man like Doug Sanders. Doug Sanders has a stance this wide. They say your stance should be according to the width of your shoulder. Doug is a Texan, we can forgive him. He can have a wide stance. He stands so wide like that, he only swings the club back to here, only follows through to there, and was one of the straightest hitters I ever saw, just there and there. Then you take a man like Bobby Jones. What a wonderful golfer. What a wonderful gentleman. What a great example he set to many of us throughout the years. I think everybody's hero. Had a very narrow stance, particularly narrow, and had beautiful balance in his swing. He didn't like too wide a stance because he could transfer his weight well without losing his balance. And balance is a very, very important thing. Even though these fellas all had different stances, their balance throughout the swing was excellent. There have been some extraordinary cases when it comes to stances and disabled people playing golf. I played with a man in a pro-am the other day. You talk about an unusual stance. He came out onto the tee. We played in a pro-am. He played 18 holes this way with his crutches, put the crutch down, stood there like this on one leg and went. Hit it like that, got his balance there, bent down, picked his crutches up and played 18 holes that way and played to his handicap. Douglas Bader from Great Britain lost both his legs in the war, had artificial legs and played down to a single-figure handicap, which was really a case of courage. Men play with one arm. I saw a man with an 8 handicap the other day, just playing with his left hand. And then you get a man who's blind, like Charlie Boswell, who has such tremendous courage. And every time Charlie sees you, he doesn't really see you, he hears you. He starts talking to you, how's your game? Great example of courage. He said to me the other day, he said, what about us having our game? I said, Charlie, that'll be great fun. I said, how many strokes do you want? He says, I don't want any strokes. I said, well, what are we playing for? He says, we're playing for $100. I said, well, what are the conditions? He says, we're playing at my home course at midnight tomorrow. And there's a case of great example of courage. Many, many people can play golf in many different ways. Now, I'd like to come back to one more point about the stance. Let's re-emphasize the correct stance that we should all be striving for. The ball with your wood shots opposite your left heel there. The stance, as you can see, my feet are slightly left of the target line. I put this club here. In fact, it's a good idea to have it even closer to check on your alignment when you're taking the club back, that you're starting it back straight. Some people might be taking the club back too much on the inside, so a good little tip would be to put that club there, because you cannot bring it back, otherwise you'll hit the club. And that's a good exercise to get you to go back nice and straight. So this club serves a good purpose in having it right there to give you the direction of the backswing to start with. Of course, eventually it turns and goes onto the plane. Now, as you come to the shorter clubs and the medium clubs, so the ball comes back just a little bit. With your medium clubs, it comes more or less about 2 to 3 inches inside your left heel. With the shorter irons, right in the center. Right in the center. Don't ever go putting the ball opposite your right leg with the short irons. You don't need to ever put the ball opposite your right leg, like so many people think they have to do. The only time you put the ball opposite your right leg is when you're trying to go under a tree, or you're playing in a very strong wind and you're trying to just keep the ball down low. The stance and the grip are important, as I re-emphasize. And remember this, if you can place the ball, a man like Ben Hogan, who was such a great golfer, he placed the ball, as he says in his book, mostly in the same place, because he said to chop and change the ball was difficult enough to hit it from one place, never mind chopping and changing it and varying the arc and the plane of your swing. So if you can keep that ball, I personally believe, and most of the top players are doing it, they're not changing the ball very, very much from that position just inside the left heel. backswing varies in appearance as well. You'll find somebody like Miller Barber, who's a very, very top senior player today, his right elbow will fly quite high on the backswing. You'll find even Jack Nicklaus, when at his best, his right elbow used to fly considerably. Then you'd find Doug Sanders, his backswing would only go back to there. You'd find Arnold Palmer, who took the club back very shut and had a very shut position at the top. You'd find Lee Trevino, who took it outside the line, also a little bit shut. You'd find a man like Bobby Locke, he'd take the club way on the inside there. Sam Snead took it back slightly on the inside. Byron Nelson took it back with very little wrist break and only sort of broke it on the downswing. So all these fellas had different backswings, but what they did do, they started the backswing back the same way, and this is what I'd like to see every one of you do. Don't make the backswing too complicated. Don't get paralysis of analysis in the golf swing. Start it back in one piece. Every great player that I've ever seen started the club back the first 15 inches in one piece like that. After that, they got into their own position which suited them. Have a good turn, make sure you've got a good turn, but by taking it back in one piece, it helps you to get a nice good turn and a good wind-up which will enable you to release the club through the ball with great speed. Tempo, that depends on you. Lanny Watkins is fast, somebody else might be slow. Swing it according to your tempo, which is smooth. But I re-emphasize, back in one piece with a nice turn like that, and you'll put it in the right position. Here's a tip. The right elbow folds when it goes back. Watch the right elbow in slow motion here. It folds. Don't keep that right elbow going out there like that. The right elbow folds. So you start back in one piece, all in one unit, which gives you a nice wide arc. The right elbow folds with a nice full turn, and then go ahead and let it fly. Here's a quick tip for swayers. So many weekend golfers are always concerned about swaying. That is the question that's asked to me of all the questions by far the most. Right, take an ordinary plank of wood. Put it in at an angle, as you can see it's at that angle there. Dress the ball normal. Now just take a swing. And that will really help you to tighten up your backswing. It'll prevent you from giving this. Here's the sway. Look at that. Look where my leg's gone, right across that piece of wood. So watch, there it is. Put it right against there. Don't even be concerned about it. Just swing the club now. Go through. Doesn't matter how much you go forward. What you don't want to do is go back when you're swaying, because you go off the ball like that, you cannot possibly come back and meet the ball squarely. That little piece of wood has done wonders for many people. Having watched so many great players for so many years, I've often said to myself, well, to make it simple in the golf swing, what are the two things that every great player does? And having come to the conclusion, which I believe is this: they start the club back in one piece as they take the club back. The other thing is, just before they actually strike the ball, just before that club actually, the moment of truth, which I like to call it, because after all, the way you have that club at impact is the important thing. And that is, before impact, all the weight was on the left side. I have never seen a great player strike the ball with his weight on his right side. So the two things are, back in one piece on the start of the backswing, then they got into their own positions, and as they started down, all their weight was on the left side before they actually made contact. Think about that for a while, and that's something you can practice on the practice tee. Now, the downswing. The downswing, of course, there are many ways to start the downswing, and this is where I want to try and help you and say to you, find out which suits you. There are a lot of people watching this instruction, and everybody is going to have a different feeling. Sam Snead, when he gets to the top of his backswing, he starts his downswing by pulling down with the left hand. He pulls down with the left hand and pulls all the way through the ball. So it's one continuous motion, pulling down with the left hand, continuing all the way through into a nice good follow-through and balance. Ben Hogan, he started the downswing from here by taking his left hip and turning it, clearing it out of the way. Now, don't misunderstand me. There's a great difference between clearing it out of the way and spinning the hip. Spinning the hip is when you keep your weight on your right side. You cannot spin your hip if you get your weight onto the left side. So what actually happens in slow motion, you get to the top, watch, the left hip moves a little bit lateral, and then it clears out of the way to give you a path and a free movement through the ball. That's what Ben Hogan did. That's what I like to personally do. That's what most of the young fellas on the tour are doing. However, some people haven't seen their knees in the last 6 years, and they cannot move the hips the way a young, slender guy can. So we give you another option. Tommy Armour used to talk about, from the top of the backswing, he used to say, take that right knee and kick it in. The first move from the top of the backswing, he kicked his right knee in, which is basically the same as getting your weight across onto the left side. Another way of doing it, people feel better if they have that strong right arm, so they get to the top and they take that right elbow and they pull that right elbow back into the hitting zone. They take the right elbow and pull it back into that hitting zone. Let me say this, the downswing is not a cast like a fisherman. You do the opposite of fishing. When you go casting, you're throwing the club. Golf is like pulling a rope from the sky. You're pulling that rope and you're pulling it all the way through. See which way suits you best. See your pro, go over these little ideas with him, and you'll find out which suits you the best. Here's a couple of good tips. Your hands are your automobile. There's your garage at the top of your swing. Now, you've got to take that automobile and park it in the garage. I want to re-emphasize that. Your garage is up at the top. Your hands are the automobile. Hit the ball and park the car in the garage at the top. Another good little tip, imagine a piece of rope across the front of the swing here. Your club has got to smash right through that rope. Now I'll show you how some people swing. They have their cars parked in very strange garages. They go back and they stop there. Or that garage is in the basement. Watch this. Or they go out to Kansas City, out there. So you've got to make a point of parking it in the garage right through the ball. Watch all these young players on television. Watch them carefully. Don't just be interested in seeing where the ball goes. Watch how they finish that shot with good balance, striking right through the ball. It's the first 20 years that are the toughest, folks. You've got nothing but time. I've stressed the importance of hitting through the ball with good balance. This is what we do not want to do. The old weekend golfer, he watches the pros play, he goes back to his club, he says, now I've got it. And once he addresses that little ball, he tightens up. And of course, his idea of hitting through the ball with good balance is this. He goes, there, now once the ball's gone, then he gives this lovely big high action. And that's what we want to avoid. We're always hearing people saying, well, he's got a beautiful swing. He's got a great style. I don't know what a good swing is, really, and I don't know what great style is. When I think of the 10 best players that ever lived, they all have different swings. The one that's good is the one that works. It's the bottom line that counts. Let me show you Arnold Palmer. Arnold Palmer stands there, the wind's blowing. A lot of golfers pick up the grass and they throw it up in the air, and I said to the player the other day, why do you do that? He says, well, all the good players do it. Arnold Palmer's a little different. The TV's on him, big arms, the most charismatic golfer I've ever seen. Wind's blowing, opens up his shirt, picks out a hair and throws it up and see which way the wind is blowing. Stands there like this, doesn't really worry about style. He has those big, strong hands, and you see him give that waggle there like this, and he hasn't worried about too much about tempo. You see Arnold standing there like that, and he's hitching the old pants up. Then you get Lee Trevino stands there at the British Open. He's got a 4-shot lead with 2 holes to go, gets a 7 on the 71st hole. Now he's only got a 1-shot lead. His first British Open. The TV commentators are there commentating on him, and before he can even have anything more to say, this commentator, Lee Trevino's hit already. Gets on the tee, and the last hole needs a 5 to win, not an easy hole. Teeing it up there, and he says, now can you imagine, I've got a chance to win my first British Open, and here I'm getting a 7 on the hole, and he's talking while he's swinging. Well, I mean, everybody couldn't get over that, and the ball still went right down the middle. These fellas have done so much for golf. Nicholas, Chichi Rodriguez, a host of number of players. Chichi Rodriguez one day is sitting in the stand, he tells me. He calls himself a hot dog pro, and I said, well, what does that mean? He says, well, I was playing the other day, and these people were in the stand, And I'm coming up there, and they said, well, who's coming up now? And they said, oh, this is Arnold Palmer. Well, we've got to watch Arnie Baby finish. And they watch him finish, and then Nicholas is coming up, and they say, who's coming up now? This is Jack. Well, we'll watch him finish as well. Who's this coming up now? Chi-Chi Rodriguez. Oh, let's go get a hot dog. So he calls himself a hot dog pro. But here's a little man who is tiny, doesn't weigh 130 pounds, hit the ball prodigious distances with great speed. And remember, folks, for those of you that are small, we all know that the big man can hit it a long way. But for a little encouragement on small men like Chi-Chi and myself, you get club head speed and distance on the ball by moving your body and your hands quickly through the ball. This is the answer. You've got to try and get those hands and your legs, everything moving through the ball with great speed. Watch the speed on this shot, but keeping it smooth on the backswing. Speed, that's what gives you the distance. We all have times where we get a little bit confused in our swing, and we get that, what I say, paralysis of analysis. So here's a little check. Remember the 4-piece swing. This will help you. This will put all the fundamentals basically into 4 pieces. Here we go. Start the backswing, 1 piece, 1. Hips and shoulders turn, 2. 3, you pull down with the left hand. 4, into the follow through with good balance. Let's just do that one more time. The 4-piece swing. 1, back in 1 piece. 2, hips and shoulders turn. 3, pull down with the left hand. 4, into the follow through with good balance. I hope it helps you. I did mention that when you want to hook and fade the ball, that you've got to alter your grip. That is the most important thing. To recap, if you want to hook the ball, you just strengthen your grip, you put the thumb on the extreme right-hand side of the shaft, and you put that right hand underneath the shaft there like that, as though you're riding a BM motorcycle. You know, you get those old wrists really working there. Get them underneath there. Now you've got a strong grip. That'll enable you to draw the ball or hook the ball. Now, at the same time, you've got to adjust your stance. You take your right leg, of course, the straight shot, everything is aiming at the flag. Now we want to draw that ball, so you've got to shut your stance, close your stance, in other words, draw your right leg behind your left leg, and you aim to the right of the target. You also will then take the club on the inside a little bit, and you'll swing inside to out, and you'll get your hook. Now you want to play the slice. Weaken the grip now. Don't forget, weaken the grip. Stand open this time. In other words, this time you put your right leg in front of your left leg. You aim to the left of the target, which enables you to take the club outside the line and cut across the ball, and that's how you'll get your slice. Those little shots are very important because there always seem to be trees in the way, Except at St Andrews, you just never see any trees there, but you still, even there, you have to hit some hooks and slices. I'll hit a few shots now. I'll hit 2 shots with a hook and 2 shots with a fade. There's the normal stance, standing absolutely square, everything facing the target. Normal grip. Now, we're going to make our grip stronger. Move it to the right, both hands. Draw the right leg back of the left leg, aim to the right of the target, take it inside the line, and there's the hook, inside out, and automatically your wrists will roll over the club and the club face will shut and the ball will hook. Now we want to play the fade or the slice. Now we do the opposite with the hands. We weaken them this time, move them over to the left-hand side of the shaft, and that one as well. Both hands stand open. In other words, we're aiming to the left of the target. Take the club outside the line, cut across, and there is the fade or the slice. And the hands this time do not cross over like they did with the hook. They stay this way and they come underneath, and the club face faces the target all the time, or to the left of the target, and never rolls over, which gives you a nice fade. These are shots you should spend a little bit of time practicing. I'm not going to apologize for nagging you, because we all have to be nagged at this game to get it right. Here's the other hook and here's the other fade. Normal stance, normal grip. Left hand to the right hand to the right hand or right foot behind the left leg, pardon me. Take the club inside the line, and you'll roll your wrist over and you'll get that hook going from right to left. Now the fade or the slice, the opposite. Move the left hand to the left, right hand to the left, stand open this time, take it outside the line, cut across the ball, and you get your fade. I do a lot of golf clinics all over the world, and we always do our little surveys, and we ask the people to put their hand up for those that are slicers and those that are hookers. And I can assure you the slicers far outnumber the hookers. So here we are. We want to give you a good little tip to get rid of that slice. Just a quick little tip. What actually happens with the average weekend golfer? Of course, there are a lot of weekend golfers that play 5 times a week, but in spite of that, they do not learn to use their hands with any speed whatsoever. They go through the ball and they block the shot. They have no idea on how to release and get club head speed through the ball. If you watch all the great swingers of our time, you'll see how the club head releases right through the ball instead of at the ball. There's a great difference between hitting at the ball and hitting through the ball. Take your feet and put them together. Keep them right together and just hit a few 5-irons like this. This eliminates the body to a large extent and makes you use your hands. There we go. It eliminates you using a lot of body. Now you just use your hand. And that is a great tip to really get speed with your hands and get the feeling of releasing the club head through the ball, and that will really help you to get rid of that old terrible slice. Of course, if you're at a golf club that has all dog legs to the right, you got it made.